So let's continue our discussion where we initially first we discussed about that what is NLP and what are the different school of thoughts primarily uh, help in progressing the NLP research. And now let's try to focus that why the invariably both the paradigms or whatever the way we work with the NLP found that the NLP is hard. Uh, and and we will try to see or try to understand the reason behind it through examples. And we will see that how in the later part of the course we will see that how the different models which we are going to use is going to resolve such kind of difficulties or the ambiguities to certain extent. So let's begin with looking at this example. As you can see, there are two sentences written here. And the first sentence says that I made her duck, and second sentence says that time flies like an arrow. So now the question for you is that what is your inference of the two sentences? Whether all of them are meaningful or grammatically correct. So, for example, one I mean the grammatical correct is that if in a regular sense, if you see the time flies like an arrow, you will see that the time as it does not fly. But then there is some sort of still the sentence is a meaningful, as we know. Let's focus on the first sentence that I made her duck. So now, what are the interpretations you have? So here in the example, or let's say that here are the three interpretations. I mean, perhaps you can think of, or I will encourage you to think to make hmm, think of the more interpretations, and you can imagine that if there are no context present here, then it's very difficult to uh, understand, even for the human, that what actually it means. uh, and most of the models you will see is that they are looking at the sentence level. So you are not looking at the previous or the context. And then if the model has to sort of interpret, then it will face difficulty because there are so many variations. So first interpretation is says that, oh, I mean, it's very simple that you have or I have made the duck for my friend, or I cooked the duck for myself, which is belonging to perhaps for her, or for both of us, or I have thrown something, some object towards her, and then that made her to to lower down her body so that she can save herself. So then, so there are several such interpretations possible. So if you don't have more context, each of these interpretations are in its own correct. Uh, and and that is what it means that the language here is ambiguous, because you have no context and you have so many interpretation to it. Now how you are going to make sense that which one is the correct one, and given the hidden context. And this variation in the interpretation is due to that the how you are actually grouping the word or the phrases of the sentence. So we are going to see that the grouping of this word together is what is called the chunking or the parsing, and this is an example of one of the basic NLP tasks which we have to do. And again, you can understand the importance that once you make such kind of the parsing, that helps to sort of to certain extent to sort of say that what kind of interpretation is more likely. And if you, again, this is a kind of an exercise for you, look into these three the parsing which is given here, and then try to relate with the interpretation, the three different interpretation which we have made. And now let's look into the more of examples of the ambiguity. So, uh, so sometimes it's Anne Hathaway is an actor, and you are perhaps many of you are familiar that Warren Buffett has his financial company, Berkshire Hathaway, and so this company's stock has gone up when one of the movie of Anne Hathaway was perhaps doing very well on the box office. So suddenly, because there is a sort of a lot of positive sentiments towards the Hathaway, and these automatic tradings which looks into these different news stories, because it says that there is a lot of positive sentiments toward Hathaway. So that means that perhaps this company is perhaps doing quite good, and that led to the, let's say that the stock price being up by two, more than 2%. And now let's look into another example. Uh, that every Indian has a mother versus every Indian has a prime minister. So now, these in the two sentences, you can clearly sort of understand that the sentence has the very similar syntactic structure, but at the semantic level, it has the different meaning. Uh, look another example when you try to see that how the uh, mm, the in this particular example that we gave the monkeys the bananas because they were hungry versus we gave the monkeys the bananas because they were overripe. Now the word they in these two sentences is basically refer to two different words, and based on that actually the meaning of the sentences is is changed. Uh, Now it's so those are the examples where at the sentence level now, and look into some of the words, and then which is sort of if you are looking at the written language or written, let's say, the text, and if you're seeing something like the word address. So now it actually depends on the how it is actually being pronounced. The meaning of the word, the address is going to change. uh, mm, and the word the fly, uh, it has the with a different the part of speech, it has the different meaning. Similarly, there will be this same word has the more than one meaning, even though it's the part of speech remains the same. So we have discussed the through examples we have seen some kind of an ambiguities. Now try to sort of categorize them so that we can understand that what are the different types of the ambiguities. So first is the phonetics, and when we try to sort of put them into the categories, this also explains. I mean, if you try to look at the levels of the NLP, and that I will sort of summarize towards the end of this lecture. Uh, so, so the first is that my finger got number. So it's not the number, but it's a number. So now the way we actually pronounce actually gives us the meaning. But if it is written text, then it becomes difficult in an automatic processing that whether it's that the number or number. So that's where this ambiguity is. This is kind of a phonetic types of entities, and basically, if this actually goes into more into the speech recognition side. And some of you are doing the course on speech recognition, you will see some of these, and you have to deal with some this kind of an ambiguities. The second is the morphological. So morphological is basically that when you try to study what we call is the morphemes. Morphemes are basically the smallest uh, the sequence of the characters which has meanings, or you can say the subword components which has its independent meaning. For example, im has the meaning in terms of the negative sense, and then the possible has its own meaning, and if you combine them together it says as something which is not possible. But we cannot apply the same thing to the important, because the important is the kind of a single morpheme. It does not combine with the two morphemes. And so when you are trying to sort of make a meaning, the ram is quite impossible and ram is quite important, then you have to take or consider, you cannot try to sort of break when you try to resolve the meaning of the impossible and then the important, you cannot do in a similar fashion. Now, this example, the Gita won the first round. Now, whether the word round is a noun or it's a verb or adjective. So, what is its the part of speech? Now, when you have this meaning, like call Ram a taxi, so you have to have sort of understand that it is being said. That you have to call a taxi for Ram, not that the Ram should be called as a taxi. So then you have these prepositional attachment. So now here that the children ate the cake with a spoon. Now whether this with a spoon is being attached with the cake or with the eating process, or what. So that again, if you look into the if you try to parse this sentence, there would be several possibilities, and based on those parsing, it actually the meaning will also change. The Ram likes the apples and pears. So this is the ambiguity of the coordinating conjunction. So now whether uh, ripe is associated with only with apples, or it is associated with both apples and pears. Uh, uh, Now look into the example of the Ram yelled at Syam. He was angry at him. So uh, now question is that whether he is uh, is referring to whom, whether it is referring to Ram or Syam. So this is one of the problem of the NLP. What we call is the co-reference resolution. Um, Ram took the bar exam. So now this is a kind of in a word sense. Now this the bar is what is the meaning of the bar here, whether the bar where you go and drink, or whether you bar is a sort of the related to the law exams, so or related to the law. So whether it is sort of talking about that. The metonymy is basically the figure of speech. So where in this particular example, when it says that Sydney called and left a message for Ram, so it basically does not indicates that the Sydney is a person name. It indicates that the you know it try to refers to the perhaps that an office which is present in Sydney, and that office has actually called and left a message for then there are some other source of difficulties. So, for example, the non-standard words, the uses of the slangs, the novel and short words, and specifically these are more relevant as the way with the the this the the coming social media checks, the Twitter and other places, the way we express ourselves, so the new words, or we try to sort of make some short words and then the variants of it. So again we will see that this again creates challenges for any models. The inconsistencies like the junior college, so there's a non-compound here. the junior college versus college junior. In one hand, the junior college is a place or the institution, whereas the college junior is basically a person. The parsing problems when you are trying to segmenting the words, so cup holder, so the whether it's a two words or it comes together. So again, we are going to discuss these difficulties and how we can uh, come overcome these. Then one of the challenges to understand the metaphors, the humors, the sarcasm. So these are the challenges and difficult challenges which the NLP models has to deal with. So, in summary, we try to understand through some examples that why NLP is hard. But what we see is that it's a very ambiguous, and its ambiguity has multiple layers. Uh, uh, and, and since and these layers, if you try to look into the independently, then you not may not be able to resolve them. So it's kind of an it has to look into the look all of these layers perhaps together, but then that creates another challenge, as we will see later on during this course. The context is important to convey meaning, and without context, perhaps no model actually can get the actual meaning. Uh, and it also involves reasoning about the world. So for example, the way we use the figure of speech, or there is a sarcasm, to understand those things, it has to sort of involves the reasoning about the world. And bringing everything these together in model is quite a challenge. So that gives you, some kind of an understanding that why still the NLP is considered as a hard problem. And again, if you try to sort of describe these different levels, so there are, let's say that you can understand at the word, so where you look into the phonetics and the phonology, which is a study of the linguistic sounds, the morphology, which is the meaning study of the meaningful components of the words, as you have seen in the example, like uh, important versus impossible. The syntax, which is a structural relationship between words, and together they make the correct sentence. The semantic, which is sort of the study of meaning, and it actually divided into the two components, the lexical semantics and the compositional semantics. So lexical semantics at the it looks into the more the individual level of the meaning of the words, so meaning of the individual words, whereas the compositional semantics look into that how to combine these words and then take out the meaning. So for example, if you see that when we talked about this the bar exam, so if you just look into the bar, then there is a lot of ambiguity that what actually this bar word means. But when you took into the compositional in that context of the sentence, then it would be clear that what it actually means. Uh, the discourse, which is basically, that it actually deal with more than a sentence. Maybe it could be a paragraph or the documents. And the pragmatics actually it involves with a little bit of the, the knowledge of the world. Uh, so that brings to the end of this lecture, and I hope that you have got an idea that what are the different challenges while working with the natural languages. And you could have seen perhaps that for example, when we have to identify the part of speech, so that is a one task of the NLP. When you see that given a sentence, if you want to break them into chunks of the phrases, that is a parsing problem, and that is another the basic NLP task. When we talk about these the uh, how we are going to parse the word. So that is again the segmenting, the tokenization problem. And so essentially you can see through these examples, if you pay attention, you can see some of the basic NLP tasks which are required in fact in whatever problem you or whatever application you want to look at. Uh, so hopefully you have understood these things, and if you have any questions, please post it on Teams, and I will be happy to answer them. So okay, now we will see you again with the next lecture.